Shalom and welcome everyone. I'm Justin James Garcia and this is
Zen Garcia.
As always, I want to bring this weekly summary to you so you don't have to go back and watch the 8+ hours of content that we put out this week. Also give you some updates on the Endeavor Freedom Orphanage as well as some of the books that we have in the pipeline. So we're super excited. We had an awesome week, had some amazing guests and some really great shows. So you all will probably be seeing this on Sunday. So today is actually Saturday, so tonight we're going to have our Digital Readers Club meeting and then our Biblical Hebrew class. Super excited about that as well because we're going to be going into the Ascension of Isaiah. So it'll take us probably 2 weeks to get through this, and that will actually finish up the testaments of the patriarchs and prophets for us. We've basically read every part of the testaments of the patriarchs and prophets. It's been an awesome read through. I loved every bit of it from Adam all the way up to what we're going to see now is Isaiah, and it's kind of a brutal story that we're getting ready to get into with a lot of interesting information to finish off that study. So on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Revolution Radio, we had author Noel Hadley join with my dad to speak on some really interesting information, topics from cover-ups and all these conspiracy realities that are coming to light in our generation as we look back and, you know, the Freedom of Information Act, and we're able to kind of see the evil hand of the CIA and all these secret organizations. But I love Noel's newest book. It's called The Hidden Hand of Camelot. So what a very fitting title, and also a really great show. I think everyone really enjoyed that one. So anything that stuck out to you from that one?
Yeah, well, he brought up a lot to consider and a lot to reconsider with regard to history and the cover-ups and what we've been told as, you know, truth. And then, of course, a lot of us being examiners and students of the New World Order and the conspiratorial side of what we are contending with in the world, the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, wickedness in high places. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but, you know, these particular legion and the forces of legion. We have looked at and reconsidered the alternative perspectives on what's going on in the world. And so Noel did bring out a lot of information that I had never considered before, but having studied a lot myself, I was fully able to see, you know, how so much has been hoaxed and so many lies have been utilized by the elite to get us into wars, you know, that we should have never have been involved in. And this goes back to World War II, the Gulf of Tonkin, so many things. Even 9/11 was a full-on setup to get us into this war of terrorism that was said to not end in our lifetimes. And so even the next stage of what I believe is, you know, the unfolding as far as the agenda of the New World Order and the terrorism, the war, you know, all of that, domestic terrorism, Patriot Act, everything that's been implemented since that time is all based on a lot of what Noel was talking about. And the hidden hand of Camelot, how appropriate, you know, because it shows us again the legion, the forces of darkness that are working behind the shadows, the Wizard of Oz, so to speak, and doing and what they are pulling off.
Yeah, it's always interesting to hear of new information, and definitely enjoyed everyone that came to the chat from Noel's group of people. Definitely was a lot of fun. Had a great night. Definitely enjoy all the shows that you and all the guests have been able to do this week. So moving on to midnight, my dad joined on Rob Skiba's show for a continuation of the Genesis Revisited series. Another great show, as always. I love this series. It's just life-changing for a lot of people, I would say. You know, just Genesis Revisited. Really simple title, but so important. It just entails so much because in our generation, so many of these ancient manuscripts are coming to light that you know, most people just haven't heard of. You know, for hundreds or thousands of years now, people have, in the Christian theology side of things, the scholarship, they all say, yeah, you know, there's nothing but the canon, and, you know, you can't trust any of that. But here we are in the age of information where we can speak every language. I mean, I can't speak every language, you know,
Right.
but we're at this time where we can decipher each other's languages from around the world. We've sent out missionaries and explorers to go to all these different hidden churches from Ethiopia to Syria to all around the Middle East, you know, and all of these testaments that were preserved, you know, like you hear the stories of the ancient monks that were, you know, hidden away.
Right.
And, you know, they just had like 3 people in this monastery guarding the secrets, you know, the secret scripts that no one could decipher for so long. And here we are finally in this generation where we have access to these things.
Yes.
So what an awesome time it is to be able to research those,
Right.
read them, and see how they stand up with the canon. So yeah, I appreciate you all joining together for that series. As you can tell, I'm a fanboy, but anything that stood out to you from that show?
Just again, you know, so much new information, and with the way that we include a lot of the parallel accounts, it does bring forth the extra details on every story that is in the Bible. And, you know, the story of Judah and Tamar, how the bloodline was preserved, all these different themes. And speaking about all the new manuscripts and compilations and collections that are coming to light, there are people that are going to these different ancient monasteries and are actually creating digital renditions of the ancient manuscripts that are there, because a lot of them are disintegrating, and over time they are, you know, losing as far as, you know, for the people the ability to read and study them. They need to be preserved. And so I think a lot of the ancient monasteries and the guardians of this knowledge and of these secrets, they realize that. And so there is an ongoing effort to digitize these accounts and to make a library and to preserve them in a manner that benefits all of us. And even in the Thursday show, joined by Robert Ferrell and Jared Allen, we spoke about just how much knowledge has come into light. And I even in that show spoke about the New Testament Apocrypha, which there's 2 huge collections out now, and there's a 3rd one to be released. And I spoke about just the books that are going to be included in that particular compilation. And there's a lot of information. I mean, huge amounts of books that most people have never read, never even heard of. And so it's amazing time to be alive. It's awesome for those that are seekers of truth, you know, the people that are hunting for a lost paradise. And so, and for people like myself, yourself, that really like to read these other accounts that have been largely forbidden the masses, and which a lot of people condemn without ever having read or studied them, it's a great blessing. And I love and enjoy reading these ancient accounts because it does bless, I believe, the people that are really students of the Word.
Definitely always a great time listening to Jared and his testimony and his convictions. It was actually the first time I heard Robert Ferrell on, but when he was first speaking at the beginning of the show, I'm like, this voice sounds so familiar, and somebody pointed it out in the chat. They were like, oh, it sounds like the guy that narrated the book of Enoch. So, you know, I used to like rest or, you know, shower with the book of Enoch playing, and he had read it on in like a YouTube video or something. So I was like, that's where it came from. Really interesting individual.
Yes.
Really has a lot to say, a lot of information to present, and some very strong convictions. Anything that stood out to you from that show?
Yes. Again, they were talking about the keys, which are some of the hidden keys that we brought out a quote that the Pharisees have hidden the knowledge, the lost knowledge, and forbidden others to go in and to find or to even seek that information. And it's that way the elites hoard and try to hide and keep everything, and even condemn, this other knowledge, to keep people from examining, looking at, and studying this information. And I believe that, there's so much that has been hidden because of their efforts, and that the promise of the Most High was that he would pour out his Spirit upon all flesh, and that the fig tree generation would be beneficiaries of a legacy of knowledge which would help us to come to understand not only the ancient past and the present, what we were dealing with then, but also the coming future as far as the return of the Messiah, the coming Antichrist, the beast kingdom, all of that, because that will play out in this generation. And so we are seeing exactly that so much knowledge is coming to light, all of these extra biblical manuscripts. And Robert Ferrell, for those that don't know, the Apocrypha 1970 on YouTube, he does read a lot of these books in verbatim, word by word, and has hours and hours of presenting a lot of this information that you don't find in other places. And so you can actually go to his YouTube channel and click on a manuscript and listen to the entirety of it and his rendition, the reading of it. And so he's been a great blessing to other people in doing that, in reading and sharing and presenting a lot of these manuscripts, which most people have never heard about, never had a chance to read. And of course, he's very eloquent in his responses. And, he and I have been good friends for a long time because we've been involved in doing the same work, and we've also come to similar discernment, for instance, serpent seed, pre-existence, things like that, because we both study a lot of this extra biblical material. And I believe that in seeking, knocking, one will find, and truth is universal, and that it is underlying everything out there. And so when you read and study the material, the manuscripts, they present the truth to you, so it's undeniable. And it's a matter of just reading, and you will come to discernment.
It's interesting. We actually had a lot of comments from some individual this week who went through a lot of our old videos and was like, the Mormons teach this. Like, are you a Mormon? Do you support Mormonism? And like, you get people that are like, the Catholics teach that. Like, are you a Catholic? And you're like, no. Like the elites, they like take pieces of truth, and they like build these false identities and false religions around them. And in order to do, like you said, the Pharisees had basically made it unenterable, unstudyable, because if you do study that, then you would get labeled this, and you don't want to be labeled false. So, normally people just stay away. But it's kind of like reverse engineering. You're taking pieces and seeing how does it fit on this science that we've already built.
Yes.
Not to say that science is infallible or something, but just as an illusion, our faith that we're building up, we definitely stand firm on the canon that's been preserved, because it definitely was prophesied that the Most High would preserve his word until the end, preserve his testimony. So it is the foundation. But being able to study these extra biblical, ancient biblical manuscripts and testimonies and accounts of the apostles and the Messiah and the prophets and Israel, there's just so much information that cross-references with one another, like stories that you see in Syria that they have that isn't in the canon, that matches up perfectly with what they have in Egypt, or in what was found in Iran or in Greece, And how did those stories come about unless there was some truth to the story in ancient past? So I definitely I like that, studying that reverse engineering and trying to find out what the true historicity of the text and of the story of the Bible is. Definitely most of you, or all of you probably, the same way. That's why you're here in this channel where we focus on ancient biblical manuscripts. Speaking of ancient biblical manuscripts, tonight we're going to be moving into the Ascension of Isaiah. Please join us every Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the Digital Readers Club, and then 9 p.m. Eastern Time for the Biblical Hebrew class with the George family. Thank you so much to the George family for hosting that, and for Brother Noel always putting together an amazing lesson plan and a really interesting piece of, they call it his story time, I think, and towards the latter end, the latter half of the class, he always brings about really interesting perspectives on the biblical narrative as well. And they also do an awesome prayer request. I forget what they call it. They adopt a prayer. And I think that that's really awesome as well. So yeah, please join. That's a family, a community that's growing. We would love to see you there. If you're new to Hebrew or an expert, definitely always an awesome time. So also, just a quick update with the Myanmar situation, with the orphanage over there. Things are getting worse in Myanmar. Yeah. The military is still being, basically just taking over and undoing all of what democracy had done in that nation. And also in India, they're still being very strict about the COVID lockdown. So Brother Nalgong wasn't able to go back to Myanmar yet. However, we have some good news. His family members, some of his brothers, and I think just his brothers, are actually going to the orphanage, and they're going to bring back all the children to the orphanage, to the new land, and start caring for them, because they were sent back to their respective homes where they were brought out from, while we were awaiting getting new funds to them and building up that new land. So thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. That is really great news that the children are going to be able to be brought back to the new orphanage home. They're going to be able to start growing it as a tight-knit community again, and I'm sure that they all missed each other, and I know that they are missing Brother Nalgong. Let's pray that he will be able to journey safely back from India to the orphanage in Myanmar very shortly, and bring those funds that we were able to securely transfer to him back to the children, so that they can continue being sustained and growing and developing as a fruitful tree for the kingdom of the Most High in that land. So thank you all for your support. Thank you for hanging out with us this week. We look forward to seeing you throughout this upcoming week. Shalom.
Shalom.